For 3 years, I lived in a house 30 minutes from the nearest town. An old high school friend I haven't spoken to in years offered me a room on a whim for only $300 a month. The only rule was that I put up with and helped with, on occasion, whatever oddities showed up on the property. I say oddities, but that doesn't cover it. Some were almost ordinary, like the floorboard that kept migrating to different rooms every few weeks. Others were more concerning. The tall man in the trees and the frog king are a couple that come to mind. I'm getting ahead of myself. My housemate, let's call him Anthony, was an odd fellow about a year older than myself. He had a lanky build and would talk your ear off about whatever ward happened to be his hyperfixation at the moment. He had a dog named Pickle, who always seemed to stare a little too long. The story starts with me. The most happened about a year in. The neighbors across the street were a retired couple, relatively quiet and pleasant. Every couple of months, they would do a burn pile. You always knew when they started, a pungent, sour smell would waft its way into the house, reminding me of the reek of old vomit. I never knew what they were burning on such a regular basis, and I didn't care to know. This is the time the gap between burns had been longer than usual. I figured they'd been away on vacation, then the smell arrived again, more pungent than I remembered. I needed air and a cigarette, so I grabbed my cheap pack and stepped outside. Need to pick up a better brand next time I go out, I muttered. Lighting up the first cigarette of the day always hits the best. The burn in the throat, the rush of the nicotine to the head, even the smell hanging in the air. I finished the cigarette and turned to go back inside when something moved by Anthony's broken down Mitsubishi. A small green creature, no more than 3 feet tall, squatted in front of the bumper. Its ears hung down to its ankles. Its nose was like a pig's snout. Its mouth was far too wide for the head, like someone had stretched it. I reached slowly for the door handle. The thing turned its head, startled, tripped over his own ears, and hit the ground with a wet-sounding thud. "Please, don't hurt it," it cried out with a cartoonishly shrill voice. I fell on my ass in surprise. Did the thing just speak English? I got up carefully and took a step closer. "I'm not going to hurt you, buddy. What's your name?" It glanced around, ears dragging against the cement, then seemed to settle. "My name? Trash. Are you friend?" I could have sworn I smoked a cigarette. I hadn't done psychedelics at that point in my life. Fuck, I needed a smoke. I reached into my pocket and pulled another cigarette. I brought it to my mouth and lit it. "Is food?" Trash pointed at my pocket. "No, it's called a cigarette, not food." I took a drag, then looked up at me with a wide puppy eyes. "You want to try it?" I held the cigarette out. Trash quickly snatched it in, jammed it in his mouth. Before I could pull it back for a moment, nothing happened. Then Trash began spinning in a circle, letting out high whoops while smoke began to bellow from his ears. "Nasty! Smoke!" It spat the butt out onto the gravel and stomped it flat. I laughed despite myself. "Yeah, it is. You're a fun little guy, Trash." It stuck out a hand. The skin was cool and slightly damp. I shook it. "Nice to make friends with you, Trash." The shot cracked across the yard. Trash dropped. A neat hole opened in the side of his head and the thick white fluid welled out. Slow and stringy, the old man from across the street walked over with his rifle, whistling something cheerful under his breath. "Thanks for finding this sucker. When they get ripe, you only get a couple of days to harvest and cook them before they get like this." He bent down and inserted his thumbs into the hole. He peeled the skull open with a loud wet crack. Inside was a quivering white mass with creamy veins bulging out. He pinched off a chunk and held it out to me. A little better at the stage, but still good. I swallowed hard, shook my head. More for me. He pushed the piece into his mouth, chewed with pleasure, and started dragging the body back across the street by one ear. Some of the things that happened at that house were the best moments of my life. Some I wish I could forget entirely. I'm not sure I'm ready to tell all of them, but I need to get this one out. With that being said, the woods behind the house were a complicated matter. Of all the places that the oddities came from, the ones that crawled out of those trees were the ones you really didn't want showing up. Anthony had made it clear we weren't supposed to go in there. That never stopped them from coming to us, though. It was a summer night, only a few months into my stay, when the knock came. It wouldn't have mattered if it had been the front door. This one came from the back. I woke up hard, grabbed the pocket knife from my nightstand, and went to answer it. I opened the door and found a well-dressed man standing a few feet back. At first glance, he looked like an ordinary plain-faced man, except for the smile. It was wide and every tooth was black, like there were rotting in his mouth. He held out a hand. "Hello, my friend. I just moved in recently and wanted to introduce myself." I rubbed my eyes, still half asleep. "Yeah, man. Nice to meet you. You know it's almost midnight, right?" "Ah, yes. But I couldn't move in without the proper formalities. I had to make your acquaintance. I just moved in over there." He gestured over to his shoulder into the solid black of the woods. My throat tightened. Sweat started down my back. "I appreciate the formality. Is there something I can do for you? I was hoping I might borrow some sugar." I just stared at him. Of all the things that had shown up at this house, this felt almost insultingly ordinary. "Yeah, give me a second." I shut the door, dug through the cabinets, and came back with a mason jar of sugar. "Would this work?" He took it faster than I could pull my hand back. "Oh, how delightful. I should return the jar post-haste." "Keep it. I don't need it." "How pleasant. I appreciate your kindness, sir." He then tilted his head back. His neck began to stretch, bones cracking one after another as it lengthened. His jaw unhinged with a wet pop, and he kept opening until it looked more like a snake than man. He raised the jar and set it against his black teeth. The sound of those rotting teeth scraping the glass sent a chill down my spine. He forced the whole jar in. I watched. The muscles of his throat work around it until the glass gave way with a muffled crunch. Sharp edges pushed against the skin from the inside like they might break through. He swallowed hard and his neck slowly folded back to normal. "I appreciate the kind gesture, neighbor. I shall only be staying 2 more nights and will make only 2 more requests of you. I hope you have a pleasant night." He turned and walked back into the trees without another word. I locked the door, went to bed, and somehow slept. The next night, the knock came at the same hour. I opened the back door and found him again. His clothes were tattered now, the fabric hanging in pieces. "What do you need tonight?" I asked, sounded more tired than I meant to. "I was hoping you might assist me with a meal. I seem to have forgotten to eat today." I could feel the bags under my eyes with how tired I was. I exhaled deeply. I rubbed my face. "What are you looking for?" "We got eggs, cereal, not much else." He just looked at me. "I wouldn't ask much of you, kind sir. The meal I require is dead flesh." I stared at him. "Did you just say dead flesh?" A flicker of irritation crossed his face. "Yes, animal or human, as long as it's dead." "How long do I have?" He glanced at his wrist. There was no watch, only a squirming tumor that moved under the skin. "An hour should be plenty, don't you think?" I didn't need the full hour out here. The roads always had something. I found a possum flattened into the asphalt, gripped his by the tail, and pulled. It came free with a wet tearing sound. I returned to the man with the marascua corpse in hand. I held it out. This work? He took the corpse and turned it over in his hands like he was inspecting produce. I believe this shall provide the perfect meal. He started to turn back towards the trees when a large cockroach landed on his shoulder. Oh, how wonderful. A new friend. He snatched it up and brought it to his right eye. He then began pushing. The eye bulged sideways as the roach's legs kicked. A thin line of blood ran down his cheek. He kept pressing until the insect disappeared into the socket with a soft, wet sound. He didn't even blink. He turned and walked into the woods. I went inside and tried to sleep. The third night, I was already waiting by the back door. The knock came on schedule. What stood there barely looked like the man anymore. His body seemed held together by string and will. The left arm hung by thin cords of muscle and stretched skin. The jaw was gone, only a long swollen tongue which lolled from the open lower half of his face. Hey, I said mostly to myself. His eyes were dull. I wasn't sure he even saw me. Then a voice came out of him that didn't belong to any human throat. It was deep, layered, like something speaking through a borrowed mouth. In your bedroom, and you keep the locked box inside it. It's something precious to you. Bring it to me. I knew exactly what he meant. In the bottom of my closet, in a small locked box, I kept a few important things. One of them was a small pink teddy bear I had since the day I was born. I got it, brought it to the door. He took it with both hands, like it weighed more than it should, and pressed it to what was left of his face. He breathed in deep and shuddered. Taste innocence. Exquisite. He then came apart. The skin collapsed with a long hiss. Black liquid ran out of the empty suit of clothes as the shifting mass of cockroaches poured from the neck and sleeves and scattered into the trees. I stood there for a while, looking at the empty clothes and the dark wet stain on the porch. I then went back inside, locked the door, and went to bed. Whatever the house decided to send next, I deal with it. That was the rule.